As you all know, Wakelet Webinars are special. We bring together some incredible educators from across the community for these community special webinars. And this webinar in particular is very special because it is World Teachers Day. But for the Wakelet world, it's World Teachers Week, right? We're celebrating all week long. We celebrate all year long, really. I don't understand why teachers only get a day. It's crazy to me. But for everybody who's joining us just now, hello and welcome to a very, very special World Teachers Day webinar. We'll be talking to 4 amazing educators about this unusual and some would say very, very bizarre start to the new school year, right? It's been very, very strange. You'll be hearing some tips on how to develop a really healthy, balanced mindset to help you cope with the new challenges that you're all facing as educators. There's never really been a time like this ever, I think, as educators. It's a time of crisis, it's a time of uncertainty. And, I think that anything that we can do to try and bring a little bit of order to that chaos, we're going to try and do and support educators worldwide. And listen, thank you all so much for joining us around the world. 4 a.m. in Malaysia, that's incredible. Thank you so much. We really, really appreciate it. Before we begin, remember that this is a very community-focused webinar, right? It's a discussion, it's like a town hall discussion type thing, and we're looking for all of your contributions in the chat. So don't forget to set the chat settings to all panelists and attendees. If you don't do this, then only me and our amazing guests can see what we write. Set it to all panelists and attendees so that everybody can see what you're saying. Or you can share your thoughts and your ideas. The webinar is going to be recorded. It'll be shared in full tomorrow. And of course, everybody's going to receive a certificate of attendance in your email shortly after it finishes. So I'm really excited today to be joined by an amazing bunch. The incredible Desiree Alexander, the amazing Randall Sampson, the wonderful Brandi Reams, and of course, the force of nature that is Tisha Poncio. Desiree, do you want to let the folks at home know a little bit about you before we jump in?
Sure. Hi, I'm Dr. Desiree Alexander. I am the Regional Director of North Louisiana for a nonprofit, an educational nonprofit, and I have my own consulting business, Educator Alexander Consulting. Started my career in middle school, high school, English teacher, librarian, district level instructional technology supervisor, and I'm doing this. And we're running from the hurricane. Hello.
Yeah, Desiree told me before that you're kind of trying to shelter yourself from a hurricane right now, which is so incredible. It's crazy to us. In the UK, even though we're a tiny island, we don't get much bad weather. The only bad weather we get is rain. So you guys get hurricanes, tornadoes, earthquakes. You get the lot. Thank you so much for joining us, Desiree. Desiree also happens to have one of the most comforting, soothing voices that I've ever heard as well. So yeah, whenever you talk, I seem to be very calm all of a sudden. So thank you so much for that, Desiree. Now, Brandi, I'm sure many people on here who are joining us today have already seen your Wakelet profile because let's face it, we share it out everywhere. We share it on our material. We share it on basically every single beginner's webinar. Tell the folks at home who you are and what you do.
All right. Hi, I am Brandi Reams. I am a kindergarten teacher from Eastern North Carolina, a little bitty town called Wilson. And I'm from an even smaller town that had 2 stoplights when I was growing up. So this is a totally different world and experience for me, and I'm totally loving every minute of it. I have taught kindergarten for the last few years, but I have been in education in one way or another since I was 16 years old. So I am very familiar at this point with the world of education, and I've kind of made it my lifelong mission to try to make it better in any way that I can. So even though I'm just a kindergarten teacher, I'm out there trying to push into every aspect that I can so that I can reach as many people and touch as many lives as possible. So I'm glad that you guys have decided to join us today.
Thank you so much, Brandi. So much more than just a kindergarten teacher. Literally so much more. Brandi's been with us for so long, and you've been pivotal in lots of the features that we've made on Wakelet, the spreading of the community and everything. And I know that the team even came to visit you in Wilson, which was amazing. You showed the class and everything. Thank you so much, Brandi, for joining us. Next up, we've got really the man who needs no introductions, right? The one who brings all the fun. We got Randall Sampson. Take it away, Randall.
Oh, hey, I'm sorry. Oh, geez, am I on? What's going on? Oh, hey, guys. Misbah, how are you? Hey, just out enjoying some Wakelet wave action, some water, splashing a little bit. So, you guys are in the exact place at the exact time. The people who stayed up till 1 o'clock in the morning, we're going to give you the show that you want, baby. So, you have some extraordinary people here today. I'm just part of the act on the side. I'm really here to learn with the rest of these folks right here. So I'm K-12 administrator, been in classrooms, so now I have my own company, Liberty Leadership Development. So that's all the stuff that we do. Been Wakelet since the beginning, like Brandi, myself, and Tisha and Desiree. We've all been around since the beginning and kind of have worked through it. So we're excited to be here, and this is all about you and less about us. So let's make it happen. This might be your first webinar where somebody's in the pool, okay? And this is what Wakelet is all about. It's all about you and your individual experience.
Thank you so much,
And
Randall.
I have the ambassador shirt on too. So I hope James is proud that I'm rocking the ambassador shirt that got mailed to me. Oh my gosh, this is like Wakelet.
He's gonna be so proud. This is gonna be his new screensaver, definitely. Like Randall in the ambassador shirt, the orange shades on, joining us on a webinar in a pool. Only you could make that sentence happen.
It was so hard to find the orange shades to match the shirt.
You've done a great job of it, Randall. Thank you so much, man. And last but not least, it's my great pleasure to announce, it's my great pleasure to introduce Tisha. Tisha is one of the most inspiring educators that I know. Again, being with Wakelet for so long, you are integral in our presence at TCEA. You've done so much to support us over the years. Tell us a little bit about yourself, Tisha.
Hey everyone, if you don't know me, I'm Tisha Poncio. I'm a digital learning specialist in North Texas. I have just begun my 21st year in education. I have a similar story as Brandi. I actually started substitute teaching when I was 18 years old, so I've been in education a very long time. I run a really special student tech leadership team as well as digital coaching teachers, and be looking for information on them because they're incredible. They're presenting next week for Digital Citizenship Week, and I'm very similar to Brandi. My whole goal is to empower other people, whether it's in education, whether it's in parenting. And so I'm so excited to be joining all of the panelists, but also really excited to see all of you joining us. I know that you are all very busy, very, very busy. So the fact that you've taken time out to be with us, honestly, is one of the very first things I would say. That is a self-care thing right there. Joining people who are going to empower you and speak into you so that you can continue to do what you're doing the best. Honestly, you guys are the best out there. So let's go.
Thank you so much, Tish. Right, we're going to jump right into it, everybody. We noticed at Wakelet that everybody's noticed really that this is a school year that is unlike any other. There's been so much stress. There's been so many things that we don't know are going to happen, so many things that have happened that we never thought would happen, a lot of ups and downs, and we wanted to put this together to kind of help allay your fears, ease you in a little bit, and really just discuss. This is an open forum for you to talk about the things that you might be anxious about, the things which are getting on your nerves, the things that have worked for you, the things that haven't. So, please, everybody, share your thoughts and ideas in the chat box. Use the Q&A feature on Zoom as well if you want to ask any questions to our guests, because we'll try and get to them, as we go along. Right, so first question. Like I said before, this will not be a normal school year for teachers and educators around the world, right? It's not going to be a normal school year. What do you think will be the biggest challenge that teachers will face this year? Desiree, let's start with you.
Okay. I was like, I want to hear everybody's responses.
I'm gonna surprise everybody. The order's just
waiting
gonna come.
I was like sitting back, like, go Trisha. I think, one of the hugest and biggest challenges is just how to change management and instruction for either distance or hybrid or the new hybrid and all these other terms and different configurations that we are throwing teachers into, like Randall in the pool, just throwing them in the pool and like, hope you can swim. Mm-hmm. I think that is the biggest challenge, because of a teacher may not be ready to go into that situation, may not be prepared to go into that situation, and that trickles down to challenges in everything else, building healthy student relationships, actually making sure that the students are learning, assessments. If we have standardized tests, just it trickles down to everything else. So I think that is, of course, one of the hugest challenges that we're facing right now.
100%. And we've got some people in the chat here talking about, like, constant changes, not knowing what's coming. Thank you, Sandra, for letting that know, for sending that through. We've got a lot of comments here as well about teaching remotely and virtually, how much of a challenge that has been. Tish, what do you think? What do you think is going to be the biggest challenge for educators this year? I know it's still early on in the year, but are you muted? I think you're muted, Tish.
I muted myself because I was typing in the chat. I always have to type in the chat. Okay, so here is what I'm seeing. We've been in school 2 months now. We are doing the, I believe it's called the high flex teaching model, which honestly really isn't a thing that we should be doing, which, you're teaching remotely and in-person students all at the same time. So I will tell you here, we are seeing a lot of, with our students, the challenges that we are all coming up against is lack of motivation from our students. They are under so many different stresses as well. And I'm seeing many more high failure rates, if that makes sense. They're not turning in work. They have lots of zeros. And then on the teacher side of it, I am seeing quick teacher burnout. Quick. I mean, 1 week in. Okay. So those, I think, are going to be our biggest challenges. How do we combat that? Hopefully you guys will get some tips from the panelists here today, but I really think those are going to be the biggest challenges for teachers and administrators currently.
Yeah, 100%. I think I've got a question here on burnout, because I know that speaking with lots of educators in the community, that's something that they never saw coming, and it's like it's happened so quickly. And I think it's just a result of, as people are saying in the chat, it's having to adapt really quickly to this new way of learning, and having to take standardized things and then make them kind of like one size fits all when there's so many different variables going on. Randall, obviously, in your profession, you work with so many educators every day. What kind of challenges do you think that, they're going to be facing this year? And also you as an educator, what kind of challenges would you be facing?
Yeah, so I work with educators from the Midwest all the way down to Florida and across to California. And the constant thing that we're seeing is engagement, and it's student engagement. And it's a lack of student engagement. And that's the least talked about thing, especially when we're talking about remote learning. And we as educators, we're so used to students showing up to school and sitting in the classroom. And we made the mistake of thinking that students showing up and sitting in the classroom, meaning that they are engaged. And now it has truly showed itself where we're competing with TikTok and we're competing with people doing other things. That's why we have to jump into a pool and do things to engage the community, because eyeballs can only last but for so long, right? So the biggest thing that nobody talks about is the lack of engagement from the student side. And it comes down to one variable on two sides, from the student side and the teacher side. The key variable to both of those is self-directed growth. We make the assumption that the kids are self-directed, that they can get themselves going, and that's not the case. And as administrators or school personnel, we make the assumption that teachers are self-directed and can go find the resources they need, and that's not the case, because teachers are saying we want the curriculum, we want the standardized things that we've always had that could help us drive the learning. So this whole self-directed learning piece is going to be critical. And then once it's self-directed, it becomes very individualized. So that's where we're heading. And I think that's the biggest thing. It's the engagement that we're not talking about, or the lack of engagement. And that cuts on both sides, the adults and the kids.
That's what we're hearing as well. That's what we're feeling as well, to be honest with you. Engagement is, a lot of educators now are trying to look for ways to use Wakelet in particular to engage their students. And although this webinar is not about Wakelet in any way, but it shows that there is a demand out there. Like you said, the competition's pretty strong. As you said, TikTok, as Desiree said, bed, distractions from the family. I know when I was working at home, I felt distracted. I mean, if you're by yourself, you're gonna feel a little bit distracted. Never mind if you're, a 13-year-old kid. So yeah, I think that's 100% engagement is a big one. Brandi, what about you? In terms of you, I know that you work so hard. What kind of challenges have you faced, especially with dealing with the little kids as well, you know?
Ooh. So I'm having some major challenges on my side, and believe it or not, it's not the children. My students, I mean, you guys kind of have an idea of how I am. Dr. Sampson knows I am all in when I go to teach. So I'm in front of my computer and I am delivering that content as engagingly as possible. You know, I'm trying to make it as fun as I can for the students. But you have stay-at-home moms who are used to sitting back and watching their shows in the morning and drinking their coffee. So, you know, you have your kid in front of you who's 5 years old. They're trying to pay attention to you, but their mom's watching TV, and you see they're constantly looking back and forth. There's other things in the house that's a distraction to them. You know, there's little kids running around that aren't school age yet. There's dogs barking at people coming up. So there are a lot of things that are big distractors that sometimes just can't be avoided. You know, sometimes it can be like, you know, parents who could cut off the TV while their child is learning. You know, things like that shows them that they're also invested in their child's learning. But then, you know, like I said, there are some other things that just can't be avoided that are within the household. So I think those are just the biggest challenges. You know, as educators, how do we nicely say, hey, mom, could you turn off that TV and, you know, maybe sit with your child and, you know, help them. You know, I can see them wanting to be engaged, but I can also see that a little 5-year-old person gets distracted. I mean, the average adult attention span is about 7 minutes at a time. So think about that as a 5-year-old. You know, you can't sit there and focus for that long at a time. And when you have things constantly going in and out on the sides of you, you know, that's a really big challenge. So that is the biggest one right now that I'm trying to overcome.
And in terms of, because it's a very very different year. You know, a lot of, we know this, we keep repeating this over and over again to the point where it's almost like you know, it's become a cliche to say it's a year that's unlike any other. How can educators kind of like keep things in perspective, right? Because the more that I speak with educators in our community, the more that I find that they're very, very overwhelmed with what's going on. They don't quite know whether their teaching is effective, which is, I think, is the most frustrating thing. They don't know, you know, kind of which direction to take, especially the educators who are doing it hybrid. You know, like you mentioned, Tisha, you know, teachers are in the classroom and the kids are at school. You know what I mean? Sorry, teachers are in the classroom, the kids are at home. It's just all very, very strange. In terms of keeping it in perspective, is there any point right now to try and do traditional learning? Is there any point to try and think that your students and your learners are going to be able to excel under these conditions? Or do you think that your perspective has to shift as an educator? And is improvisation a key to that? Desiree, should we start with you?
Sure. Kind of a couple of things with what you, like the question, because I think it's a lot to unpack even in that one question. I think one of the things, you know, we hear self-care and wellness as just a person, right? As a human being. There's also self-care as an educator as well that we need to think about. One of the things that I get on my soapbox about, and I keep telling my educators, is to stop using every tech tool. Like, stop trying to use everything out there. Stop trying to keep up with merry technology that uses everything. You know, I tell them, even the stuff when I'm doing PD, I'm like, I'm showing you all this stuff. I don't use all this stuff. You know, like, I'm just showing you some tools, like, choose. And I tell them to use the WHO system, use the WHO system. What tech tool do you want to look at? How do you use it? What's the outcome of using it? If you can't quickly answer those three, move on to something else. Like, just stop trying to use everything. Use one thing into the ground and then try to use something else if you want to add something later. Because all it does is it makes you overwhelmed. It makes your students overwhelmed. It makes your parents overwhelmed, you know? And so that's one of the big things. And the second thing, I think I'll move on, is when we are talking about self-care, I don't think we realize how much we're missing. And it's just those little things that we don't internalize, we don't really think about, but they mean so much. So this summer I had so many teachers like, I'm just overwhelmed, I'm depressed, I'm bogged down. And it was those little things where, you know, I would say something, they're like, oh, I didn't realize that. Driving to school, you know, you don't realize like that's your alone time. That's you listening to a podcast. That's you listening to music. That's you screaming out loud, whatever you're doing. Like just that little thing, driving home, that's your decompression. You don't have that when you're sitting in front of a screen and you go straight into family and you go straight into this, and you go straight into a phone call. You know, it's just those little things that we don't realize that we're missing, those little points throughout the day that we do have a moment to breathe that we're missing. And even if we're on campus and we're by ourselves, I saw someone put in the chat, you know, in front of a computer the whole time, it's not the same as even going to your door and greeting your students and talking to your neighbor. And it's just, we're missing a lot that we don't realize we're missing. So I'm gonna be quiet.
No, I think you're 100% right. Like there's things which you're not conscious about that you do every single day that just aren't there anymore. And then it's you know, you only realize that you're missing them when somebody reminds you that you're not doing them anymore. It makes complete sense. And I love the point that you made. I mean, I think it's like tech fatigue is real, and I think that I had a conversation during Community Week with Matt Miller about this, and it may sound counterintuitive because Wakelet's a tech platform, but we always say, listen, like, start with what your learning outcome is first, and then see if Wakelet fits in, not how it fits in, see if it fits in even, because it might not. There's a lot of pressure, I think, especially when all this started, for educators to just be like, it's all about tech. But, you know, I've seen a lot of educators who are using more traditional methods, in the sense that quite often they're actually driving to the kids', you know, houses to drop off packs and text and things like that, because, you know, not every once you decide to put all of your eggs in the tech basket, then you have that equity issue that you have to deal with. Some kids don't have devices, they don't have internet, and that becomes a problem. There's a really nice comment that I wanted to mention here from Karen Philhart, who says, I think maybe we should consider that traditional learning may not happen this year, but life and career skills will be learned. So collaboration, technology, working remotely, troubleshooting, improvising, I guess, it's just a different kind of learning. I think that's an amazing perspective to look at it. You know, those traditional learning outcomes may not be achieved, but, you know, there's going to be a heck of a lot of other residual skills that come out of this. Tisha, what about you? What do you do to kind of keep things into perspective? And do you think that, you know, you should just kind of forget about the traditional learning outcomes? It's a completely new world, right? What do you think?
Well, so some of the best advice I ever got as a brand new teacher was to be a willow tree. And I remember that every day, whether we're in the middle of a pandemic or not. So very much to what Desiree said, you know, stay grounded in what you know. Do what you know. Don't try to pile on everything, because just like she said, little by little, you're gonna lose yourself, right? I mean, that's just part of it. And I think I know I'm speaking for all of us, but I will tell you that I really had to go back to the basics and go, okay, I have to stop piling everything on. I was feeling overwhelmed. And as a coach, I was seeing my teachers, you know, somebody mentioned something about teachers crying in the hallway. Like, absolutely have seen more tears this year. And my job specifically has had to change. I've had to adapt how I do things. Instead of meeting in groups of PLCs, it was very evident to me that my teachers were not able to do that. And it was going to be one more thing that they had to add to their plate. And it was going to put some of them over the edge. So I say, stick with what you know. Be graceful with yourself. The high expectations that we have on ourselves as educators, I've talked about this before, but we just naturally put high expectations on ourselves to help everybody and do everything and be all things to all people. And we really have to remember to stop doing that and kind of just go the way that the wind is blowing, so we do not lose ourselves in this season, truly.
Yeah, I think that's a really impactful way of looking at it. I think people love that, the willow tree analogy. I do think that one of the hardest things that human beings can do is change and adapt, although we do tend to do it quite quickly. You know, when you look at like calamities and crises and things which have happened in the past, human beings do have a really good like a talent, almost like an intrinsic talent to adapt to things. But I think that it's such a complicated world nowadays that people need guidance. They need to attend things like this and have that advice. And I think one of the most important things is having it so that your own fears and the things that you're anxious about are being reflected in the people around you, so that you don't feel like an island. You don't feel like you're on your own. Everybody out there is really struggling. And I don't think that it's possible for, and you can't be a super educator right now, I don't think. I think that you just have to kind of roll with the punches, do your best, and, you know, see what comes out of it. Randall, what about you? What do you think on the matter? Is traditional teaching kind of dead right now, or what do you think?
Yeah. Yeah. So I work with a school district in the Central Ohio area called Pickerington Local School District. They have a really, really cool plan called Tradigital Learning. And so they have an entire strategic plan. But the nuts and bolts of it is they want really, really great pedagogical leaders who happen to just use technology. At the end of the day, it's about the pedagogy, right? It's about how you're engaging kids, what strategies that you're using, and then finding specific digital tools that just happens to be there to make it work versus the other way around. So with that said, and as Brandi knows, one of the things that we've done over the past couple of years really is this whole concept of reduce and prescribe.
Exactly what I was going to say.
Yep, we're going to reduce and prescribe everything and make sure that everything that's out there, we bundle it all down and we say, okay, what are the essential things that we want and what are we going to be able to accomplish? And let's prescribe this. And then every PLC that we have, every communication that we have is based off of the prescription that everybody's doing, rather than everybody out there trying different things, trying to keep up with everybody else and dabbling around, and there's just a hot mess of things, right? So we reduce and prescribe, and then we're very intentional about it. And with that, in our strategy, we have a 55-45 strategy. So 55% of everything that we're doing that's remote learning is communication. And they're like, well, when do we teach? No. 55% of everything we do is communication, whether it's a newsletter, whether it is a phone call home, whether it's a PLC, every bit of communication. And now inside of that communication, what tools do we use for that communication? So we use Flipgrid, we use Wakelet in the collaboration space, we use this tool or that tool. Then we prescribe specifically for that communication what we're going to do, and we're not going to go all out. And then 45% of it is alignment. So how are we going to align the tools that we currently have to get to that outcome? So we have 55% communication with the parents, with the kids, with each other. The 45% is alignment of the content to get it across the finish line. And with that, that's kind of broad-based how we do it, the things that have been successful. And it's structured. Teachers and kids and parents, throughout all this chaos, they still thrive better with structure. And I have this saying that I've kind of said it the last couple months is a mediocrity thrives in chaos. So the more chaotic your school is, the more the kids and the staff and the parents are going to go to the mediocrity of learning, which is not what we want. We want to reduce the chaos, reduce the anxiety, reduce the stress, and be very focused on what we're doing, and the outcomes will speak for themselves. So that's kind of where we've gone, and that's kind of the things that we've seen that has worked. Just reduce and prescribe everything, and be very intentional with what you're doing. And even as Brandi can attest, the biggest secret in schools that nobody talks about, the schedule. The schedule wags the dog. So in our schedule, we were very specific. We said, teachers, you can only do 20 minutes of interactive online learning. The other 25 minutes is all independent learning by the kids. And there's mandatory 15-minute breaks in between classes. So we call them wellness breaks. And we provide mandatory 1-hour sessions of PLCs so you can have that connection with your staff. And with all of this time that kids now have, we have a balance now where there's off-screen time learning, independent learning, on-screen time help, and you have time to reconnect as a staff through a PLC.
Oh, some really good tips there, Randall. I think you've got people agreeing with you as well in the chat. Carrie Ann says, South Africa used the term curriculum trimming to try and get through the curriculum by the end of the year. It's not so much production, it's reduction, right? It's like just trying to keep things in bite-sized chunks, which are easily digestible. Brandi, I'm going to come to you in just a second, but could everybody in the chat, I'm really curious, and I'm sure that everybody else will be curious, just share in the chat just before Brandi answers. What do you really have a think about it? What do you find to be the most frustrating thing about teaching right now? Because I think it will be a big conversation starter, and I'd be really interested in hearing this. But Brandi, back to you. Again, the traditional teaching methods, that kind of thing. Can a teacher be like a superhero teacher right now? Is there that space to kind of trigger all of those traditional learning outcomes?
I'm going to kind of step away from my panelists here for a second and say, yeah. So, one of the things that I put in the forefront of my mind when we stepped into this in August was there are schools out there that are completely virtual. They are virtual public schools. And that's what they do. These are people who may be medically fragile. They may have lifestyles where they cannot go into a school system because their parents travel all the time. So a virtual public school is their best option. Those teachers, they are getting their curriculum across. They have a plan and they stick with it, and then they deliver it. So just like Dr. Sampson said, at the beginning of the year, we came up with a schedule that was very specific, and we let our parents know in the very beginning absolutely everything that we expected. We let our students know what it was that we expected. And when we find ourselves sticking with that, we find that the engagement is going to increase because they know what's coming and they're expecting it. And, if you go into it with kind of your heart out there, you let your students know that, I know we're not in the classroom, but you are still my students and I still care about you just the same as if we were in the classroom. Make those connections with them. They're going to want to show up. I know just a week or so ago, I had to take off a day to take my daughter to the doctor. And I had parents texting through Remind and emailing saying, my kid is distraught that you are not on the computer with them right now. So they get used to being in that environment with you. And, just like he said, reducing and prescribing, pick those few things that can help you get your curriculum across. Don't pick what you think you want to use because it's cool. Like Desiree said, pick something that is going to be intentional. How can you use this intentionally with your students? And when you find those things, that will help you deliver your curriculum content. You don't have to go throwing things out because you feel like you're not going to get to it. Go according to your pacing guide, using those things that you have, and teach as if you were in the classroom with them. There are some things that I'm doing differently because I don't have manipulatives that I can just hand them. I don't have letter tiles and things like that. I can't pull them together in a group to write on a big anchor chart paper together. But there are ways to kind of supplement those things through virtual learning. So, don't go and bog yourself down with all of these things that you think you want to have because the next educator's doing it and it looks great. It may look great, but they might not be effective with what they're doing. So still try to teach the best that you can and just know that, if you set those routines and those expectations, your students are going to start to I don't want to say comply, but their engagement is going to be the same as if they were in the classroom with you. One of the things that I do every morning standing at my door is I greet every single student that I have. It's not just a good morning, boys and girls. It's a good morning, Johnny. Good morning, Madison. It's good to see you. As they're coming in, make those connections with them and they know that you care about them and they're going to be willing to be a little more engaged with you because of that.
And there's
now, Ms.
Randall, go on.
I'm going to jump in real quick with that. And Brandi's a little shy about saying it, so I'm going to say it. So, so when you think about kindergarten teachers having 100% attendance rates, little kindergarten kids, right? 100% attendance rates, And it started off with something small like Brandi empowering the kids by saying, hey, we're going to do a flip grid attendance. Every kid just jumps in and says, hey, I'm Madison. Hey, I'm Tommy. I'm here. You know, that kind of thing is 15 seconds. But that's that 15 seconds for the entry point into the rest of the day. And it also empowers the kid to take the initiative to say, I own this 15 seconds. I'm in charge of this 15 seconds. And so she empowers the kids that way to where you have 100% attendance rate, because what kid's going to jump on and say, I'm here, and then don't show up for the virtual class? And they love it. They're all into it. So kudos to Brandi for all those great things that she's doing. And it's the little things that you have to get right, and she's doing them right every single day.
That's so true. And I think yeah, just there's no reason why you can't say hey to your students as they come in on a Zoom call, as opposed to just saying it in the classroom. So I think what I took away from that, Brandi, is that you can replicate. It may be a different method, it may be a different delivery system, but you can replicate some of those things that make physical learning so special, but do it in a virtual environment. It makes a lot of sense. We've had a lot of frustrations come in, unfortunately. I mean, unfortunately, but it's good to vent from people talking about what they find is the most frustrating thing. I think most of it comes down to uncertainty. We've got Dana saying uncertainty. Anne-Marie says the disparity of resources, so not having enough resources around to kind of help with that. Yetzi says the lack of knowledge of students towards the platforms we're using. Yeah, that's a big one. Like, we have found that ourselves as well. It's like, how do you explain what a platform is to a student when they're not in class with you? It's been difficult for a lot of educators to do that and kind of make that transition, especially kind of doing it over the camera. We've got Nelifar, who says cameras off, right? It could just be a case of the kids not having their cameras on. I know that some educators have said that they really don't mind that as long as the kids are engaged and plugged in. But some educators, it's difficult because it's really hard when you're face to face. You can see whether somebody is engaged in what you're saying or not. When the camera goes off, it is more difficult to do that. Kerry Ann says the most frustrating thing is balancing work and home life. I feel so overwhelmed at times. 100%. Back when the Wakelet team was working remotely, I remember saying to the guys, listen, don't work in bed, right? Bed is where you sleep. If you try and switch off after working in bed constantly on your laptop, it's not going to happen, because your brain is going to link that sacred place of rest with work. So there's things that happen at home that you don't realize that can cause you to be really restless, overwhelmed. And I mean, there are so many things which everybody's frustrated about here. Internet issues, not having a stable internet connections which are repeatedly lost. But there's also some hope as well. Eduardo says we've got an hour of engaging and interactive live lessons and 20 minutes for independent per class. So it looks like educators are kind of making the most out of the situation. Keep those coming.
Can
And
we
also
work on the pool, Misbah?
It does.
Work
I
from
mean,
the pool? Is that okay?
If you have a pool, work from the pool. Please, as well, any questions that everyone has, use the Q&A, because we'll try and get to them. We are running a little bit late, so we'll try and zip through the rest of these questions to make time. So I'll try and, I've got 2 questions here, but I'll try and mash them together to try and get 2 in 1. So many educators are being asked to do a lot more than they've ever had to do, right? And it's not like a lot more in the sense of more work. It's more work, but it's also combined with a lot like learning new things and having to go through that and spend energy on that as well. It's a lot of pressure. And as we said, burnout is real. We know that a lot of people are burning out right now. It's only normal to feel burnout. In your experience, what can teachers do to kind of deal with that pressure and help prevent burnout, help prevent just feeling like completely done? Desiree, do you want to kick us off?
I think kind of what Randall said, that's one of the things that we talked about this summer. We held a webinar about balance is possible, hold on. And I'm gonna put the link to it, it's on YouTube free. But that's one of the things that we talked about was separation, not, oh no, that was you. Sorry, that wasn't Randall. But Randall said some awesome things. But I was like, no, who said that? Just like the separation of not working, having a separate space, even if you don't have an office and all that good stuff, just a corner with a beanbag chair, just something that's separate. to work, and then you have your space. Even like the physicality of getting up and walking away is almost like you're driving home. It may be 2 seconds, but it does something to your brain chemistry. You know, little things like that. Just stepping away from the screen whenever you can, even if it's to just go to the restroom or whatever, just like get up and step away. And what I found is I would get up and I would step away, and then I would bring this with me. So I was stepping away and I was still doing that. And it's like, well, that's not stepping away. You just went to a smaller screen. So like step away. And if you're like me, I don't like to be outside. I don't like to walk. Like people are like, walk. I'm like, no, that's not for me. Do something else. I don't care. Run around your house. Go watch a TV show. Like just watch an episode of The Office. Like do something that just gets you away for a little bit before, you know, you come back and have to deal with stuff. And I think the final thing I'll say, I don't want to take up all time, is you have to set up boundaries. There's so many people that will suck you dry, and that's just truth. So like there are people that are really like, just, I need help. Like we understand, but there's some people that will just use you until you are shriveled up in the corner, and then we'll just go to somebody else and use them. So you have to set boundaries. Like I'm not going to answer an email. I'm not going to answer a phone call after this time. The same thing you did in the classroom, you have to pull that in right now. So after 5, yeah, I'm sorry that baby doesn't have his homework link. I'm sorry. I'm done. Like, this is my time. This is my family. And don't make excuses. And what I mean by that is, it's not like, oh, Randall, I couldn't answer you because I had so much to do. I couldn't answer you because I was in my pajamas eating chips and I was watching a TV show. Like, I don't have to tell you what I'm doing on my time. Okay, so stop making excuses. I didn't answer you because I didn't want to, and it was my time. So, like, stop that. Put boundaries up. Stick to those boundaries. Like, let the rest go. You know, we always hear that if you die tomorrow, your job will be posted. Like, we're going to cry, but your job will be posted. And it's the truth. So you have to set up those boundaries and stick to it. It doesn't mean that you don't care, like all that silly stuff. And I'm so sorry. Okay, I'm going to stop talking. But, you know, I put in the chat the superhero myth. Like, I used to love that. Like, not all superheroes wear a cape and teachers are superheroes. And then I started thinking how destructive that is. Like, no, I'm not a superhero. I'm a human. I'm a professional. I'm awesome, but I'm not a superhero. I need sleep. I need to eat. I need, like, stop with that. Okay. And the myth of teachers being there late. Okay, I'm gonna stop. Because just because your car is parked there late doesn't mean you're doing work. It may just be because you don't have internet at home. I have internet at home, so I'm gonna go home and do what I need to do. So I'm gonna stop.
I love that. What a mic drop moment, Desiree. I love that so much. You're 100% right. And I think that the point that you made about boundaries has been a hit, and rightly so. And I think that it's important that when you're setting boundaries, you have to set them as early as possible in any relationship, whether it's work or with your kids or with your friends, whatever it might be, because the moment that you do something that you don't want to do, that's out of your comfort zone, every time you do that, it's going to get much more difficult for you to actually bring yourself to say, actually, hold on, no, I'm not doing this. Because then rather than saying, I don't do this, you're saying, I'm not going to do this anymore, which is a lot more difficult. So 100%, yeah, if you have boundaries that you're going to stick to and your principles, you can't compromise on those. You have to, you know, get them out straight away as soon as possible, as soon as the first thing happens, and you know, pray that everything goes well. Tisha, over to you. What do you do to deal with burnout? Have you experienced it?
Well, listen, it's hard to follow up, Desiree, but I'm going to say on that same note, I wrote boundaries. The truth is, in this season, there are just some things I don't want to do at that particular time. So I have this theory. I've shared this on a Buncie webinar before. It's called the not to-do list. It literally says, do not do. And I have bulleted those things because, like I said before, I'm trying to help everybody all hours of the day. So I had to quit doing that. So on my not to-do list, it says, do not open work email after 5:30. And it is hard for me to not work after 5:30, but I owe it to myself and I owe it to my family to do that. So my challenge to all of our attendees today is to come up with your own not to do list. It could be a not to do list for the day, it could be for the week, or it could be for the whole month, depending on what you have going on. I actually have a ton of tips that I put together for all of you, and I'm going to share that in the chat right now so you all have access to that. But my tips for really boosting my mindset and really try to counteract all of that negativity, like Desiree was talking about, like I want to watch my show Schitt's Creek on Netflix, and I want to eat like some, yes, oh, she knows, yes, I should have worn my David glasses. But here's the thing, I have some tips. The first one is to be thankful. I do this 40 days of thankfulness challenge every October. And I'll just be honest with you, it was October the 2nd, and I hadn't even thought, oh, it's time to do 40 days of thankfulness. And some random lady on my Facebook page messaged me and said, so when are we doing the 40 days of thankfulness challenge? And I was like, oh, thank you for that sign. We are going to start that actually on Monday. So if you want to join with us, we are doing that over on Facebook. I've linked it there for you in the Wakelet. The other thing that I do is have mindset minutes. Everybody's kind of talked about that, but here's what I do. You know, Desiree doesn't like to walk. I used to walk. I ran half marathons. Now I'm really not really into that. I go sit outside on the concrete in the sun and have lunch. I eat lunch in my car sometimes and open the back so that I can change up my routine. We are so like discombobulated that, you know, I get up at the same time. I know I'm coming to work to do the same thing. I know my own kids are at home. I'm at school, but I've had to change things up. So instead of getting up to work out like I do every day, Miss Beth, this week I've been getting up early to make myself some homemade hot cocoa. Or maybe like this morning, I got up to watch some TV. And so for me, that's a gift because I'm always feeling like I'm on call. So thankfulness, a mindset minute, or if you want to take a day off for no reason, I highly recommend that you do that. I've done that as well. Minimalism. Okay, clean something, clean out a drawer. You will feel better. You will feel so much better just by doing your junk drawer clean out. And then my last tip is really to create something. My friend, Laura Steinbrink, always says to create something once a day. And I have taken her advice and really try to sit down and create things. So you'll see I've created some graphics in Adobe Spark that I embedded into Wakelet. I know this isn't a Wakelet session, but I wanted to do that to see if it worked, Miss Beth. It does.
It works.
And so I create things, and I actually have implemented these strategies, these 4 or 5 strategies with my own students. So they have alarms set and we stop working and they start creating something. I don't even care what it is. It could be anything. It doesn't have to be for school. It doesn't have to be for their classes. It just needs to be for fun so they can have a brain break. Let's be honest. We all need a brain break or a pool break.
Mm-hmm. I remember when we were on lockdown, I started to draw things. You know, like I don't know what it is. There's something about being locked down and not doing anything that just kind of I felt this need to just kind of get some kind of creative output and draw. But I loved your idea. So let's get the chat involved in this. Tisha just said that she has a not to do list. If you did, and you should, what would be on yours? Let us know in the chat. And let's go over to Randall as well. Randall, burnout, how do you deal with it?
Oh, I just had to cool off real quick in the water so I don't burn out. There we go. How's that? Hold on a second. Let me get back in. All right, there we go. So for me, real quick, I know it's not a necessarily a Wakelet session, but you got to use the tools that you use, right? So one of the things that I did was I started to I'm a very physical person. I like to move. I like to keep going. I want to say I'm a former athlete, a retired athlete, maybe. So one of the things that I like to do is I create a Wakelet collection with all of the YouTube videos of all of the high intensity interval training pieces. And then I'm very specific to say, okay, at lunchtime, after I'm done doing a session or I'm done meeting with somebody at lunchtime, I'm going to dedicate 1 hour, 45 minutes, 30 minutes, whatever it is to this component. So physically I can get that release. And then mentally, I think it was during the whole lockdown, everything got canceled. The Masters golf got canceled in the spring, which is a big deal. And I remembered I had last year's Masters that I curated inside of Wakelet every round for whatever reason, I took all of the tweets last year and put them for every round. And one of my favorite golfers is Tiger Woods, so I didn't realize he was going to win it anyway. So that was like really cool following it all the way through. And so Masters Week this week, or this year, during the week when they did all the replays, I was watching all of my Wakelet replays as well and kind of doing that. So it's just about finding your own personal joy and making sure that somebody doesn't tamp out your joy, whatever that joy is. And I feel you about sitting in your car with the sun rays coming in, eating a bag of chips, just relaxing for a second, pushing away. If that's your joy, don't let somebody jump on top of that joy. You have to find out whatever that joy is. So for me, it's either curating stuff that I'm going to use later on for physical exercise. We also have some music lists that we do. So curating some music inside of Wakelet and just letting it play throughout the day, playing it throughout webinars and so forth, and even during pool time. I have a pool track that I like to play at the pool. So it's all about you.
Awesome. Some great advice there, Randall, for sure. Physical activity is the one. I know that jogging helped me immensely during lockdown. Brandi, what about you?
Hey, Ms. Bill, real quick, I heard this one saying, they said, look, I haven't heard anybody come back to say they want to live the same life again. So we only get one go at it, so live it to the best of your ability.
Very true. Very true, Randall. Brandi, what about you? What do you do to deal with burnout?
So I have a few things that I've started doing towards the beginning. So some of you know that I live in the boonies. So I'm out here in the sticks, woods, everywhere you turn. So, you know, in the very beginning, also I'll say that I have a 9-year-old daughter who has Down syndrome. So for me, I am teaching from home. So I'm teaching my kindergartners. I am a leader within our school, so I'm constantly helping others with whatever they need to work out. And then I'm trying to help her. And it's not just let me help my child log on so that they can complete their work. That doesn't happen for her. You actually have to be there with her. You have to guide her through things. So it's been a hot mess express in my house almost every day. So, you know, I would say 3 o'clock would come in the afternoons and I'd be like, come on, Brayley. We'd go get the 4-wheeler and we would just go ride. And we would do nothing but ride around our yard or ride through the woods for a little bit and just clear our minds. You know, I would just put her up there. We would go and it's loud. You don't have to talk. You know, we didn't have to talk about anything. We just had to enjoy being outside. Another thing that I do is I am a huge Audible junkie. So I listen to tons of audiobooks. And so I will, come the end of the day, plug in my headphones and I will kind of zone out. So down the road here, we have this little barn and it has a little pasture outside. I noticed horses and stuff, and I've kind of been watching them for the last year or two just to kind of see what it's all about. Well, a month or two ago, I got the guts to actually stop at this barn to see if they do riding lessons, and lo and behold, they do. So what I do now is I take my daughter twice a week up the road, a minute away, and I hand her off to the lady that owns the barn. I go sit in the back of my 4Runner with my Audible book plugged in, and I just watch her ride horses while I sit there and listen to my books. And the lady's like, are you sure you want to stay? I mean, you can leave her and come right back. You know, we're a minute apart. And I'm like, nope, because if I go home, work is going to be there. There are going to be things that I feel like I have to do. And so if I stay here, I don't have my computer. I don't have to do anything. So I turn my book on and I put my phone down so that I cannot see text messages or emails come in. And I just listen for that hour that she's sitting there. So that was my little piece of joy. So
that's beautiful, Brandi. Yeah, I mean, we have an amazing series on mindfulness. If you go to our YouTube channel, you can find it with Erica. She's incredible. She has loads of mindfulness techniques, which I think help everybody. And also, yeah, somebody wrote like kind of just switch the news off, you know, like the news is very, very negative and it's very consuming and it's like everywhere. And, you know, just remember that every time you click on like a COVID-19 article, like people are getting paid for that. You know what I mean? And it's like for the news outlets, it's kind of like the gift that keeps giving, because everyone's curious about it. They can write as much as they want about it, and everyone's going to click it. Give it a break for a few days. Nothing is going to change, you know? Get used to the fact of you know, that you're not, your mood should not be changed by the news. You should be informed, but you shouldn't be, you know, kind of, it shouldn't make you unhappy or overwhelmed. We've literally come to the hour. However, I do think, you know, everyone's still here. So let's do the last question before we jump off. We may go 5-10 minutes over, but I hope that everybody's okay with that. The last question, I'm going to kind of mash them both together again, just because we've had such an awesome conversation, and I knew this would happen, by the way, because you guys have such great points. Okay, so what I wrote here was, quite often, you know, people forget the emotional impact of teaching in an environment like this. You know, how it might feel, teachers getting emotionally overwhelmed by things as well. And a lot of people are like, you know, switch your emotions off and, you know, just think practically. It's not that difficult to do that. And then the other question, which was to kind of finish us off, is, if you could have like one piece of advice, one mindset, one thing that people should take away from this session, what would it be? So it's kind of like a double-edged question. Dealing with the emotional overwhelmness of all of this situation, and then also the final quick piece of advice that you can give people before we jump off. Desiree, take us away.
Okay, I don't know why I keep being surprised. I'm like, oh.
I know, I've noticed every time I say Desiree,
Every
it's like
time.
there's a clear system I'm going through it every time I say it.
Like every time I'm like, oh, me. Okay. Well, I guess just like quick 1-2 is one. I wrote this like Twitter post once, and it just was telling teachers like to remember what's really important. And what's really important is you connecting to those kids. Like that's number one. I heard Brandi say, you know, what I have to do. We always think we have, like we're going to die and the world's going to end if we don't answer that email. And it's just not true. It's just not true. So just please remember how amazing you are. Remember how important you are to those kids. Again, what Brandi said, you know, most of the time they just want to see you there. They just want to see you present. They just want to connect with you. So please understand and remember the true importance of why we do what we do. So that would be, you know, that would kind of be both of those wrapped together, like the emotional part of it. Of course, we're emotional. We build generations, right? Like that's what we do. We build everything that exists on earth, right? I mean, if you really think about it, we build everybody. They come through teachers. So yeah, it's going to be emotional because our product are people. We can't recall the class of 2002 and say, let's do it again. Right. So yes, it's going to be emotional. So that's it.
Thank you so much. That's really beautiful, Desiree. Tisha, what about you?
Okay, well, I'm going to say this one thing because I wanted to tell Brandi. Sometimes I just drive home and I enter my garage and I just sit in the garage in silence with the car off. And my family has gotten used to that because it is like a silent break before I go to the next part of my life. So I know it sounds crazy. I think my neighbors think I'm crazy, but the truth is it really does help break that away. Here is what I want all of you to know before I leave you. You are not alone. You are not alone in the high emotions, in the tears, in the struggle, in the depression, in the unknown. We are all right there with you. We understand where you're at, and it's all normal. I think I've said that to every single teacher that I've met with, from Texas to Florida to New York, in the last couple of months. Stay strong in the things that you know. Surround yourself with those people that are going to empower and uplift you. And lastly, find people or TV shows or movies that are going to make you laugh, because the more you laugh, the more joy comes out and your energy will just double over and it will totally combat the negativity that's coming at you.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Tish. Randall, what about you? Final words.
Final words. So for me, it becomes very simple. It's be your own champion. Because if you can't become your own champion, it's hard to champion for other people's kids, for a community that you live in, for colleagues that you serve. So just be your own champion. Figure out what you're really good at, and it doesn't necessarily have to be technology. Figure out what you're really good at and amplify that times 10. You have to become your own champion. If you're not your own champion, it's going to be so difficult. Every single day is going to be a struggle. So champion yourself, and then you'll be able to champion the people that you work with and the people that you serve. We want to move from point A to point B. Just be your own champion. That's all it takes. There's no magic here, and it's all self-efficacy. What am I in control of? What can I control? And the stuff that I can't control, you know what? I'm sure somebody else will. And with that, you just fall back and relax.
That's what I'm talking about, Randall. Nobody does it better. Nobody. Thank you so much. Brandi, what about you?
Yeah, so just like he was saying, control the things that you can control. And when it comes to emotions, you know, there's a lot that we can be upset about right now. There's a lot that we can be distressed about. But we need to find those things that make us happy, the things that we know can bring joy to our lives. And I'm actually going to share my screen with you and show you a little something. So I don't know if you can see this little note right here. I got this in the middle of a class this morning. The mom texted me on Remind and was like, "I'm so sorry. My son said I had to send this right now." And so I never open these during class because I want my students to be my focus, but I opened it and I looked at the picture and I looked up to see that child's face in the little box, and he was just smiling so big because he knew that I saw this from him. So these are the things that make me happy, and these are the things that drive me to do what I do. So I'm not going to sit here and I'm not going to dwell on all of these things that I can't control, because at the end of the day, there are going to be things that you absolutely cannot control, and you need to step back from those. But you can control how you interact with your students and how you interact with your families, and choose to focus on those positive emotions because you know that you're making an impact positively in a child's life. So that's just my little bit of that. And I don't know, that's just kind of how I roll with things.
Oh, Brandi, that's so beautiful. I mean, I don't really have much in terms of advice. I did want to share a video with everybody, but I've never done it on Zoom before, so I'm gonna have to see if I can do it or not. We put together a quick video for World Teachers Day, and it's inspired by, you know, every teacher that we've ever, you know, interacted with as you know, as Wakelet. All of you are absolutely incredible, and you don't get thanked enough. So I'm going to try and share this video, although I hope that the sound comes with it. I'm just going to be quiet for one moment and see if you can hear the sound. Can you hear that? Did you hear that? Did you hear that?
I think we can hear it. When you click share, there's a little button in the bottom that says share audio.
Yes.
Okay, let me see. Is it under more or?
No, if you stop sharing your
button.
screen.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay. Share computer sound. Amazing. You're amazing. Okay, how about now? Can you hear this? Okay, I want to play this video. I want to play this video for everybody. This is Wakelet's thank you to educators around the world, and then we'll close it off. Give me one moment, and here we go.
Teachers of the world, for all the assignments you've had to chase up, for all the endless grading, for all the new tools you've had to learn in a matter of days, for all the paperwork, the planning, the curriculums and the quizzes, for every staff meeting, every parents' day and every fire drill, for every time you've had to pay for your own class supplies, for being a mother, a father, a friend and a companion to all your students, for all the times you've had to hold it together whilst everything around you spins out of control, for all the nights you've stayed up worrying about children who aren't your own, for being a psychologist, a nurse, an event planner and a social worker, all in one day, for burning the candle at both ends, for every time you've had to get your head around a new policy thrown at you from out of the blue, for getting up at 5 after going to sleep at 1, for finding ways to deal with every unique little personality you come across, for the thousands of student names that you've committed to your memory, for all the hours, for all the energy spent, for all the tears and all the sacrifices, for the dreams that you encourage every single day, for every hope that you inspire, for every smile, every A+ and every nod of encouragement, for creating those little moments that are remembered forever. You answered our questions. You made us confident in ourselves. You helped us realize our talents, our ambitions, and our personalities. You awakened our spirit and our creativity. You inspired us and helped us figure out our place in the world. You were the adult we needed when our parents weren't there.
And I can't believe this has happened.
Parents weren't there. You were at the beginning of all of our journeys. You taught, you cared, and for all of this, we thank you.
So that was a little video that we put together for World Teachers Day. I want to just say a huge thank you. It's coming to the end of the World Teachers Day week now. And this webinar has gone on for 11 minutes longer than it should have. But I just want to say I appreciate you all so much. Everybody in the chat who showed up today, all of your contributions. Bear me a second. Sorry, autoplay on YouTube is on. All of your amazing contributions during this webinar have been amazing. We have so much gratitude for you. And thank you, Desiree, Tisha, Randall, Brandi. Thank you so much for joining us and making this a really, really special webinar for everybody. You will all receive certificates of attendance. This will be recorded and shared with you probably tomorrow morning, I would say. But thank you all so much, guys. If you wanna say bye, you'll have to speak one at a time, though. Maybe we could go in turn, Desiree, and then we'll go with Tish, Randall, and Brandi.
I'm kidding. I was expecting it. Bye, guys. Thank you so much.
Bye, everybody. Love you all.
Bye. Take care. Have a great day.
Goodbye. And at 9 o'clock Eastern, Dr. Sampson and I will be hosting a Twitter chat. So if you want to continue this conversation, make sure to join us over there on Twitter.
Thank you all so much, everybody.
Wave.
Thank you.
Yeah.
We appreciate it. We appreciate it so much. Thank you all for joining us. Take care. Stay safe. Bye-bye now.